Again. So recording again for secretarial purposes, everybody. And so welcome to the Pacific Palisades Community Council meeting of October 12th on this special agenda item, which happens to be the bridge project. So if all of you have been reading the emails, you all know that the reason we're having this meeting is because I made a promise to this community that I would bring the bridge project to the PPCC so that people, community members, could voice their thoughts, whether in support or with concern or in opposition, because this is an issue that was last vetted about 20 years ago. And even though there are people on this board who have been intimately involved with the evolution of this project, there are many people who have not. And so I had made a promise to the community that I would bring this to the community council. I was under the impression that the contractor being hired by BOE, the Board of Engineering, City's Board of Engineering, would conduct outreach, and they will, but that outreach isn't going to go towards the community's sentiment about the bridge. It's going to go towards its design. So it's the pre-design phase. And on Friday, which is tomorrow, the Board of Public Works has on its agenda the approval of that contract. And we were told yesterday that this is kind of a now or never kind of point of no return. And I thought that it was unfair for me not to bring this to the community, inform the community that we are at this moment where the Board of Public Works is going to review this contract. And if they approve it, the bridge project goes forward. So I'm going to venture to guess that there's no one on this call who hasn't heard about this. It's been in the media and it's been on the table for about 20 years. So anybody who tells me they haven't heard about it, you know, that's kind of not what we're looking for, but I am looking for people's thoughts and concerns about the bridge so that the city and state agencies that are tasked with building this bridge fully understand what some of the community's concerns are, and they understand that they're going to have to address them in the design phase. So I'm happy to take all comments, any comments. I'm not circumventing any comments, but I do want to make everybody understand what the purpose of this is for and why it's within a 24-hour notice, because tomorrow is the big day. In the end, I'm going to ask this, and I see your hands, so thank you, everyone. In the end, I'm going to ask this board to take a vote. Obviously, voting members can take a vote. We're going to vote as to whether we are at the point in this community where we're going to advance forward with this. We're going to submit to the pre-design phase. We're going to ask the contractor to do meaningful outreach and to really consider the community's input on aspects of the bridge that have to do with public safety and other concerns that may be raised here today, all of which I can put in a letter if we take a vote and we have a formal position. So that is what we're going to try to march towards in the next hour or so. So I'm going to take questions as I see them. We, as you all know, have a rule here at Community Council. We generally take board members first, but I'm going to say that's at the discretion of the chair. So I'm going to take Alan Goldsmith, Haldis Toppel, Jacob Chakarian, Barbara Cohen in that order. So Alan, Haldis, Jacob, Barbara, and then we'll do the rest. Alan, you're muted.
Okay. I read the original documents on this thing from 2004, and it's really clear that the resolution was that there would be an environmental impact report for the bridge and everything else, and there would also be coastal commission approval. And as I understand this, the hearing tomorrow is to approve the firm that's designing the bridge. Well, we don't have an environmental impact report on the existence of whether or not we should have a bridge. So that's really, it's out of order. We don't have a coastal commission hearing and decision on the subject. And I'm opposed to the bridge in general. I'd like to, make a motion to oppose the bridge on the grounds that conditions today are so radically different than they were in 2004 when this was conceived. There was no homeless problem on the beach or in the Palisades or anywhere else in 2004. Nothing on the scale that we have today. We have petty crime going on, in Potrero Park already. We've got fireworks being set off. We've got gates that don't lock and people that are loitering. And yet we have a district attorney that won't prosecute misdemeanors. So we don't really have any kind of effective law enforcement to deal with conditions that may exist in this park, which would be aggravated by easy access from the beach. So we've got a lot of problems here that we really have to address. Do you want me to make it in the form of a motion, or are we just talking at this point? I can't hear you. Are you talking, Marianne? Now what?
Miriam, you're on mute.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay, so Alan, we're not going to make a motion right now because, as you know, motions on this council have to be noticed. And yours would be a friendly amendment, presumably to a motion that's already on the agenda, and friendly would have to get a second and then be voted on. So let's hold that for a second, get a few more comments, and then we'll come back to it. Thank you.
Okay, one last real quick comment. There's been no outreach to, there are a lot of people that are not living in Palisades that are not represented by an HOA or anyone else, like area 4, 5, and part of area 6. These are, these are individual single family residences that don't have an HOA. So
outreach would have to be to them.
Yeah, we need to have some outreach to these people. We need to get more consensus, and we need to get it updated. 2004, 2008 consensus is really invalid under today's conditions. So that's the end of my comments.
Thank you, Alan. Haldis, Jakob, Barbara.
Before I make my comments, could you restate the motion that's on the table that is already there?
Well, yes. So it is. So the agenda item is review of the bridge project and board feedback on whether the PPCC should hold an open community meeting to assess the current community sense about the bridge that proposes to connect the George Wolfberg Park at Potrero Canyon to the County Beach parking lot at Will Rogers Beach, or whether we can allow the contractor hired by BOE to conduct meaningful outreach in order to garner the community's feedback through the process of the pre-design phase and implement the results of that feedback in a substantive way that will address the items of common concern and incorporate community sentiment into the final bridge design. This would include public safety elements. So the point is that these would include public safety elements that we would be able to then put in a formal letter and send to the city and the state, so that we're not just giving them an open-ended invitation for a bridge, but that we're putting some benchmarks in there that are tied to the concerns that this community may or may not have. That's okay. What we're going to vote for. If we fail to pass that, then we can vote to ask the council office to pull this item from the Board of Public Works agenda and give it more time for community outreach.
My comment is community outreach is absolutely necessary. I think we've known about the bridge, and as was already said, conditions have changed drastically. And either an environmental impact study, community outreach, whatever is necessary to have a community forum to further assess the can I be for or against the bridge? It's hard to say at this point, because we really don't know enough about the impact. We don't know about the funding of the maintenance of that bridge, the security of it, the locking of access after hours. I think all of these issues need to be addressed and need to be understood.
Thanks, Haldis. Barbara, isn't that the order I said? Haldis, then Barbara? Yes, Barbara Cohen, welcome.
Thank you, Miriam. We were told there would be a feasibility study that we could review and comment on. When is that going to be presented to the group?
Do you want an immediate answer, or should we go through? I think
I pose it as a question similar to what Alan asked for, which is an EIR. Right. We were told several times that there would be a study that we could then review before we take a position. So I've been looking forward to seeing that study. I
think a lot of people were, and I'm going to see if Jake is on the call, because I think Jake has an answer for us. I do not believe that we can expect a feasibility study as such to be forthcoming, but I do think that Jake will have a little bit of an answer.
Perhaps tomorrow is premature.
Yeah. Okay, so Jake, you're on the call. Feasibility and EIR come up. Feasibility has come up before. I think you might have an answer for us, but the Coastal Commission seems to have also asked for an EIR. Do you want to step in, or should I just continue to take?
Thank you, Miriam.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to respond to the concerns. I think maybe it's just worth hearing from everyone first and then responding, if that's all right.
Yep. Yep, I agree.
Taking
Barbara,
notes.
so you know the feasibility study and its availability have come up before, so we are going to get an answer to that. All right, so Haldis and Barbara, I just want to note you both have been around for a very long time. So if you don't have answers, yeah. So the Wolfbergs, I want to acknowledge all the Wolfberg family on the call. You know how important some of you are to me. So I'm going to take your comments in just 1 second. Let me get a couple of board members and then I'm going to take your comments. Karen, board member Karen. Andrew, is that Andrew Wolfberg? Yes, board member. So let's do Karen, Andrew, and Luke Hamer. Karen Ridgely, Andrew, Luke Hamer.
Hi, thank you. I represent Area 4, which is from Temescal to Bienvenida, and I have similar concerns. Number one, I don't really have feedback from my constituents for this immediate decision. I've had some comments that are concerns about having a bridge at all. And I've had another question that was, if we vote on this, not to give the BOE the option to be approved tomorrow as the contractor, what are the consequences? But the concerns that I've heard from some of my constituents are that, quote, the residents do not want the pedestrian bridge. That's some feedback that I've gotten. That there are many Palisadians completely unaware of the pedestrian bridge and the pros and cons of having such a bridge. The security, given that we don't have any security of the park itself as it exists, much less when we open it to the traffic to the beach and into the park, there have been no enforcements yet or rangers provided that are going to be monitoring the park to take care of some of the nuisance calls we have now, which is about fireworks and kids climbing the fences. And I have another question. Somebody raised that was stated, there's going to be a bike path in the Potrero Park for people to come and go to the park. My feeling is, given the long distance between the park and the beach, I would guess that it's going to be a lot of younger kids that don't have a car. They might ride their bikes. What are we doing about whether there will or not be bikes allowed on the paths that exist, or is there going to be a separate bike path within the park to allow that? I know that there was concern from the Wolfberg family that there be bikes allowed, but I don't know what the final decision has been in terms of trying to have accommodations for pedestrians. It's a narrow path, and pedestrians who are walking pets on leash, it's hard to imagine both on that same path. If there's going to be a bike path, is it additional to the pedestrian path that's going to be developed within the park? Another concern was the beach parking lots supposedly are closed at about 5 p.m. I don't know and haven't verified that, but if it is, the question is, who's going to really provide the security that prevents people from continuing to use the bridge thereafter? If there is no enforcement, then it's likely that there will be abuse of that situation. And there are only 27 rangers supposedly available for the whole city of LA. And there are 350 parks. So there's really no security provided presently for the parks. And if you're going to try to manage the security to get in and out of this park, including possible homeless, that's an issue. And another question was about the insurance availability for people if we have this additional risk. I don't know whether that plays or not, but given how uncontrollable it has been in the park already with some of the problems we've had with youth not obeying the park closed rules, what is to guarantee we will have the security for this new access to the park and the community around it and within?
Okay,
That basically summarizes all that
Okay.
I've heard.
so concerns with increased access. Got it.
Okay. I would say we need to get community input. I would like to put out a call to my constituents saying, this is the issue, please give me the feedback before I can take a vote. I don't have any means of collectively finding out unless I do that, and there's no time before tomorrow
Okay,
morning.
thanks.
Thank you.
Andrew, thanks. We got it. Sorry, I am going to move it along just because it's going to be 9 o'clock soon, but thank you, Karen. We got all of that. Andrew, then Lou, then I've got Reza.
I think you have the other Andrew with the hand up, but I'd like to defer to my cousin Anya to speak before me. So I know she can clarify some of the questions that have been raised that might be helpful in the conversation.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, and I see
discussion.
Anya, and I will call on her, but who's the other Andrew? I guess not a Wolfberg. Okay, so let me just get a few of the board members in, and then we'll go to non-board members, and I see you all. Reza, and then Lou, and then Dave Card. Oh, and Betsy. Go, Reza, Lou, Dave, Betsy.
I think Lou was before me, so I'll let him go first, and then I'll go after Lou.
Thanks.
Thank you, Reza. I want to speak not as a transportation advisor, but just in talking with other people, but also bring some data to it. And it would be great to have a private bridge that I could ride my bike down, or my kids could, and go to the beach and access the bike path and such. That would be great, but they say that it needs to be located where it is. Where it is not going to be useful for most people, and I'm not sure what the ultimate population or what we're going to see going up there from the beach parking lot. They say that we can't move it and that it needs to be there, and the reason that it was part of the deal was because it was to inhibit people from going across PCH. And looking at the data from 2017 until 2022, there have been 4 accidents there in that time, and there have been no fatalities in that time. At the same time, at Temescal, which is a really dangerous intersection and slow because of the way that pedestrians have to cross, we've had 18 different reported issues over the same time, some of those being fatalities. So even though I love the idea of having this bridge that would give me access and perhaps to other people, I don't see it from a safety standpoint. I don't think it's wise, and I think that the resources, if they could be used in a different place at Temescal, would feed this, the dog park, and also any other uses that are going up Temescal, as well as connecting us to the bike path. That's my comment.
Okay, so you're saying that the location is not necessarily helpful.
It is not a bridge. It is a bridge that I think would be vastly underused and would be much better if it could be moved closer to Temescal to take care of the issues, the safety, not convenience issues that happen there.
Okay. All right, Reza, I now see Sue Cole too. So Reza, Dave Card, Betsy, Sue Cole.
Okay, well, Lou should know by now that allocated money can't just be allocated somewhere else. And, as someone who has been around Potrero Canyon for maybe not as many years as David Card, but at least the last 20 years, I know that this bridge has been part of the vision for that many years, and the community's known about it. The fact that many people in the community are against it now, or maybe against it, or the fear mongering that's been committed against it, I don't think is fair. The bridge, I can tell everyone, as someone who has been a stakeholder around that canyon for the better part of 8 years and is still a stakeholder at that canyon, it's your own kids that are the problem. And your own kids in this day and age are spray painting swastikas on my property. They're kids that go to our local private schools. I have video footage of them in their school uniforms, entering my property, smoking weed on my property, spray painting graffiti on my properties, different places. and it's your own kids. So the fear mongering that someone else is going to come up from the canyon and come up from the beach is not fair. Now, however, I will address the fact that I like that Mariam did this because it's transparent. And I think some transparency is necessary, because one of the things that we have been as stakeholders around the immediate, and I'm biased and I'll recuse myself from voting on this, is that we've complained that this 4-foot fence sucks. It's stupid. Imagine you build a 4-foot fence and then I have a 6-foot fence. Well, everyone should be able to figure this out. We just built a ladder for everybody to climb into private property. That's a joke. Like, why did we do this? Like, BOE and the city of Los Angeles need to really slow down and think about it. It's already been 40 years. What's another 2 months to really come down with a better plan for all of this and to be more transparent? And let's honor George Wolfberg, who, deserves to have a bridge to the beach. So it should be there. The bridge should be there, but let's at the same time make sure that we secure the park and make it safe for everyone in our community.
Thank you, Reza. Thank you, Reza. All right. I think I then said David Card, Betsy Handler, and Sue Cole. So Dave, you are very well versed in bridge matters, and I know that you could probably take over the rest of the meeting, but I'm going to ask you to please be sparing with time so that we can hear everyone, and welcome.
All right. Thank you. I do appreciate all the comments. I know that I've heard many of these comments before since the original Community Advisory Committee on the Potrero Canyon project started in 2004, ended up with its report after hearing all of these kinds of concerns, and recommended the bridge. The majority of the committee recommended the bridge as its first priority, or at least a safe crossing of PCH. And the reason is because we had seen deaths of people jaywalking across PCH. We knew that there would be a park that would lead people down to the edge of the bluff to be able to jump the fence and go run across PCH. We have pictures showing that sort of thing. And we know that deaths have occurred there. Maybe not as recently as Lou reported, but there have been documented deaths. I would like to say that we have made this bridge public knowledge for years, for decades now, and people have had the opportunity to comment on it all along. I think it's time to give that, now that we have what we wanted, which was a contractor who will give consulting advice and do research on the bridge. We have a contractor in Jacobs who, as part of his their research, will research environmental issues, safety issues, all of the kinds of things that we're hearing in this meeting and we have heard in the past. And it includes a team member of the Jacobs team that is an expert in outreach. And they will be doing outreach not just on design, but they will hear your comments on anything you want to talk about, I'm sure. And so they will have public meetings, that's in the contract, at least 2 or 3 public meetings. They will have a website. They will have all kinds of ways of communicating with the community and reacting to our concerns. And I would just urge you all to I think a vote on anything in this regard is unnecessary and a distraction. I think what we need to do is say yes to what we've been asking for all this time, which is we want some outreach. We want more information. We want the city through Jacobs to give us more and more information about what this bridge can be, where it can be located, what it will look like, and how it can they can resolve some of our concerns. So I say, give yes a chance. You've been told yes. Here's the chance to get what you want, which is outreach, and that's what is being proposed in the Board of Public Works tomorrow. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, I can clarify about the outreach, but it is true that there will be outreach. The outreach will hopefully be the kind of outreach that takes the community's input into consideration and reflects it into the bridge. And I think that is part of what we should try to do here by the end of this meeting, no matter how we vote. If we vote to give it to, if we vote to go forward, we should probably make sure that we put in there a request to at least an assurance that when that outreach is done and feedback is received from the community, that it is then reflected in the bridge. I think that's the very least that we can do. So Sue, and then I'll figure out who else I said. Now there's Jessica. Let's go, Sue. Oh, Betsy, Sue, Betsy, Jessica.
Well, I have a personal opinion, which is it's something like Dave mentioned that we've been asking for a long time. The funding evidently is in place. It's come a long way. I think it's a little late in the day to try and put the brakes on a bridge, which has been in the works for so long. My question is, I think there needs to be an EIR, and I don't know why there isn't one at this point. I'm wondering if this is something where they have to come to us for our opinions when it comes to how it impacts our community. And I don't know what all they're going to ask us: aesthetics, safety. There's a lot of things the Palisades have to answer, but I'm wondering, since this is City of LA, does the city have a responsibility to not only to the people that don't live in the Palisades to provide this bridge and access to the park and the beach? Because it's a city project. It's not a Pacific Palisades project. So I'm wondering if there's city responsibility there that really overrides us. That's my question.
Project broader than just the Palisades. Right. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll have Jake answer that. I think he can. I think he probably has formulated a response to that. Jessica, and again, I'm not shunting off your question. I'm just saying Jake wants to answer all of them in one shot, and I think he will. Jessica. Oh no, I'm sorry. Betsy Handler and then Jessica, both board members. Then Julie. Betsy, you're muted. Betsy, you're still mute. Wait, Betsy, you're still mute.
Is that okay?
Yes, you are no longer.
I endorse most of what I've heard tonight. I don't think a whole lot of people in the Palisades know about this bridge. I've lived here 38 years and I didn't really know about this bridge. I think it's incumbent on whoever is involved to have community-wide meetings with lots of really hard information and discussions, and not just one meeting and not just for an hour, but multiple meetings where this can be thoroughly thrashed out. And there are very important issues: safety and environmental impact, and whether it's in the right place, and all the rest of the issues that have been brought up. So it seems that it's being a little bit rushed through, although I gather it's been discussed for years, but there's been a lapse, I think. And the community needs to know about it. And I think the point that was just made, that it's a city, it's not just for Pacific Palisades, it's a city function. And we can't keep other people out, so let's get the community. And I would not leave the outreach to the contractor. That I think that's a critical point.
Okay, so I want to say this is a special meeting because we are at the point where we are about to leave the outreach to the contractor, and the contractor has promised to give us meaningful outreach. But that outreach is let me try to explain that once this contract is approved and it's given to Jacobs, that outreach is only in the direction of building the bridge. It is not whether or not to build the bridge, but how to build the bridge. And I think that it will be very important for us as a community, all of us, to make sure that the people who do the outreach understand that the feedback they get has to be implemented into the bridge. So it can't be that we talk about environmental impact and safety issues and they sort of just build a bridge. And I think everybody is probably on the same page with that. I do want to say, I see a number of people from the Democratic Club, and I want to say this issue of whether or not this is just a Palisades Park or a citywide park is something that bore pretty heavy for the Pacific Palisades Democratic Club. And one of the reasons that they voted to support it was this idea that there had to be equal access to this resource, which was the beach. And this resource, which happens to be this beautiful Potrero Canyon Park with all of its vistas. Arguably, the bridge cuts into that vista a little bit, but that is part of it, that we are stewards of very beautiful areas that are not just for us, they are for the entire city. And the city would be quite interested in, creating more access. So that is certainly something we do have to consider, and I'm sure the city is considering that. Okay, Jessica, I see you. And Julie. Jessica Rogers, board member, and Julie Silliman.
So I echo a lot of what's already been said. And as the president of PPRA, we haven't voted on this yet, but I know we're not actually ready to vote on it yet. This meeting was called at the very last minute, and I tried to get as many people from our board here in the meeting, and we don't even have like 20% of us represented. And I know that my board would really like to be in a community meeting to be able to talk about this. Listen, I love Potrero Canyon. I love the park. I love the whole concept of sharing our land with everybody in Los Angeles. It's awesome. It's awesome to see families up and down Temescal Canyon through the summer. It's just incredible to see all the people. I meet people that I know from all over LA every time I hike Temescal Canyon, and it's great. And I fully embrace that and love it. I think that given what we're currently experiencing with the horrendous, horrific, no-end drug epidemic that we're dealing with right now, this bridge that would take us directly to the bike path, which is no longer a safe, fun place for people to walk down along the beach. I don't do that anymore. Years ago, I used to train for marathons and run up and down that beach path freely, never being afraid of anything. And now I won't go there without a pepper spray. So we're not living in the same world as we used to. And as time goes by, it keeps getting worse. I've been asked to keep my children at home for the next 3 days and not leave my house. We do not live in the world that we used to live in, and it is constantly changing every single day. If anything, I believe that we shouldn't just go through with this without involving our community, our entire community, give people a chance who don't even know the PPCC. Lots of people don't know PPCC, and they don't know PPRA or many of the other organizations that are here being represented tonight, because they're just living this fabulous life that gets provided when you live in the Palisades without actually knowing that there are a lot of community activists who make this happen. And thank you for that, by the way. So this is something that, but we do hear families and parents in schools who are terribly concerned because there's issues of young children getting beat up in the village, and there's fireworks going off all the time. And we have, fire hazards constantly here. Those things get people engaged. They're not necessarily engaged in this because I personally believe they haven't heard about it enough. And maybe most of them, they don't necessarily read Pali Post or the Circling the News either. So there are other ways to get the community involved. And I think that we should not be going ahead and pushing this through. And the concept of leaving it.
Jessica?
Development, just one sentence. So often the done deal. There's no movement made, and promises that get made don't follow through. So I think the community should know what we want before we go ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. We lost you for just a second, but I think we got the gist of what you said. And I want to make clear, it seems like everybody agrees that there should be outreach, but there is going to be outreach done by the contractor. It's just that the outreach will be in the direction of building a bridge. There will no longer be a chance to say yes or no to the bridge. It's going to be in the direction of the bridge. Assuming we go there, I want to reiterate what everyone else is saying. There are concerns that we should make sure the city is aware of, or the contractor is aware of, and they implement those. So Julie, you had your hand up, and you know that I always very much like to hear from you because you are on the you're on the PCOC, Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee, and you often have some great ideas to impart. So I would love to hear from you. Jessica, I'm going to take your hand down, and then Rick McGay is also on the call.
What I find really interesting, having listened to everybody, and I share this the same, is that I don't feel like that we're all very well informed about what this bridge is. In the email that Miriam sent out, there were documents in there that I wasn't aware of. A 2018 feasibility study that looked at various ways to have safe crossing across PCH. And it has an example of a bridge which was completely different than the bridge that I was imagining in my mind. And so I think that it's way too premature for us to be saying yes or no, and particularly no after it's been decades of struggle to get it this far. And the fact that we have money that's been secured and already transferred to the city, and we're ready to start a contract. I really think we're in much better hands if we work with this team that is soon to be contracted, that can help us have meaningful, fully well-informed on all technical aspects, whether it's how we might address safety, to what the form of this is, where it actually lands, how it would be used, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, all those questions that might come up. I don't think we as a group could host a meeting like that and answer the questions or even organize and analyze the information that comes in well. I think we have to turn to this team.
We do. Begin
to work with them, let them learn, and let them guide our community in to have meetings. And under contract, there's in this contract, if it goes forward, there are 3 community meetings that happen. And I think that's a really good opportunity. And it's also supposed to be quite broad. They're supposed to be looking at not only the adjacent community, but beachgoers, as well as the view of what it looks like for cars going underneath the bridge, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how they would survey them, but anyway. And when I keep thinking about this bridge, I keep thinking that the main users of this bridge are going to be people in the Palisades that are going to have a way out of the community that doesn't involve a car. We just got through hours earlier today of talking about people getting trapped in their cars and not being able to leave the community. And this is going to be a really important way out, and a way to the beach, and a glorious way to the beach without having to get in the car. I really don't think there's going to be that many people that drive across town, that pay to park in that parking lot, look at that glorious beach, and want to turn around and hike up that hill. It's just my sense. That's all I have to say.
So I feel like you said two things. You shared 2 thoughts with us. One was that we don't know enough, and that you saw documents you hadn't seen before. And I want to bring that out a little bit, because the biggest part of what I'm trying to do here is to make sure that people have a sense that they've been heard. And then the second part was, how is outreach done in a way that's meaningful? And it certainly isn't done by PPCC. I would agree that it would have to be that professional contractor that knows what they're doing, contracts to have 3 or 4 different, events of outreach. And again, I mean, Jake, I know you're on the call. I know you and I have talked a couple of times. That outreach has to be substantive and meaningful. It can't be, oh yeah, we'll talk to Palisadians and then we're going to go do what we want to do. Yes, this is a park for the city. Yes, this is a bridge for the city, but it is this small community that's going to be hosting this park, that's going to be taking care of this bridge, that's going to be enduring the consequences if it doesn't go well. And so our public safety concerns have to be implemented, or at least addressing them has to be serious. But those are 2 different things. Do we know enough to go forward? Are we?
She's the chairman.
When you want to talk to someone, you got to mute. Thank you. So those are the 2 different questions that are on the table. I'm dying to hear from some like the Joe Halper and stuff, but let's take Rick. Rick, are you gonna? So Rick McGay, I think he's going to tell us something pretty important, and then we'll go to non-board members.
Well, what I just wanted, everyone to consider is that part of the permitting of Potrero Canyon Park was providing access to the beach. So whether it's the bridge or the public access trail or both, there's going to be one of them. And I would venture to guess that the unhoused and the teenagers would be more apt to using the public access trail. So as a park board member for the last 10 years, we have supported the bridge simply to provide additional parking. Because if you go to our park on the weekends, there's no parking available. And if other visitors are coming in, we needed to find more parking for them. We gained 19 parking spaces when we opened up the circle in the park. That's hardly sufficient to park the visitors that may want to enjoy that park throughout the city of Los Angeles. So just be aware that beach access has to be provided one way or another, whether it's the bridge or the trail. That's
Okay,
it.
well, you bring up a wonderful point, a point that I think everybody has heard before, but we'll bring it out again. And that is that Potrero Canyon Park was permitted by the Coastal Commission with a coastal access element that was built into the park. So the park must have coastal access. The coastal access that has been approved is a lateral trail. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that the bridge will be approved, but what is approved now is the lateral trail. A lot of people on this call, including Jake and people from the city and people from the assembly member's office and a good number of board members, have walked along the ridge of what would be the lateral trail. We can't walk along all of it because it goes through some pretty perilous territory, but most of us have walked through and we understand that that lateral trail is not going to be an easy trail to lay down. It's not just like a little, footpath that's obvious. It goes through some pretty perilous topography. That trail is going to be expensive. Dave Card can fill us in, but I think, 10, 20 years ago, they thought maybe it'd be $500,000. Today, they think it's going to be $3 million. And we have about $1.1 million that's in the bank from Ted Lieu for that lateral trail. That is coastal access. This community could say, let's have a really great trail, not a dusty trail, but a great trail that accommodates bikes and takes us to Temescal Canyon, and then people can cross. So the coastal access is true. But I don't want to harp on it because it cuts neither here nor there. Coastal access can be accomplished by way of a trail. So we're talking here about a bridge, arguably an easier, shorter path to the bridge, to the beach. Jacob, did you want to say something? Because otherwise I'm going to non-board members.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I changed my mind.
Okay. So then I'm going to go to David Card, I see you, but I think I'm going to go to the Wolfbergs if that's okay with you. Do you want to, is that okay? Nod or shake?
No, I don't, my hand up was from prior, not now.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'll bring it down. Thank you. So I'm going to go David Wolfberg, Anya Wolfberg, Diane, it's lovely to see you, and then John Ale. So David, Anya, and then John Ale. And welcome.
Thank you, Miriam, and thanks for calling the special meeting for this. I'm the son of George Wolfberg, one of his two sons. Anya is his daughter. It's clear from what was said in this meeting that there will already be a public process. So I would just say my dad would advise to stay on top of the agencies and help facilitate the outreach. The main meeting, though, it just presented a hopeless community disaster scenario. Hagop said, we're trapped. There's no way to get out. Lou agreed. LAPD is afraid to sugarcoat it. Carl said evacuation drills give a false sense of security and Palisadians should give up and just plan on sheltering in place. The residential areas are wood houses surrounded by forms of fuel which have been removed from Potrero Canyon. Murray offered other advice tonight. He said, leave your car at home and walk to the beach. So I'm saying, chief among the changed conditions since a bridge was first proposed is that a wildfire disaster now seems imminent. In Lahaina, on August 8th, lives were saved by those who could make it to the ocean. This bridge, especially with the ability to accommodate bicycles, especially with that ability, could save the entire community. Service bikes can get out to pick up emergency supplies and can also scout for the safest evacuation routes and also provide information if power is lost from the Palisades. But these new ideas about the bridge don't distract from why it was the advisory committee's first recommendation, safe crossing of Pacific Coast Highway. It would be a shame if instead of seeing their neighbors happily traversing a new bridge to the beach, Palisadians will instead have the specter of candlelight vigils, roadside memorials, and piles of dying flowers for deaths that have already been deemed unnecessary. There is no new information that could surpass the need to prevent traffic fatalities, which in the lifetime of Palisadians, myself in my youth, remains a shameful legacy of the Pacific Palisades. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anya?
Hi, thank you for holding this meeting. I know that there, and I support David's comments as well. I know that there is concern about the Jacobs task order contract being approved by BPW tomorrow morning. I've heard through my involvement that there are a range of security concerns around both parks, with the Palisades youth causing problems with fighting, bullying, fireworks around the rec center. This has come up on multiple meetings that I've sat in on, as well as I've also heard of break-ins by people who are assumed to not be from the community, who did come through the new George Wolfberg Park at Potrero Canyon. And it seems like there are some serious security concerns. I think it's going to be really important to bring these instances to the public outreach process that's required to be held as part of this Jacobs contract, so that the solutions and deterrents can be highly integrated into the bridge design. For instance, perhaps if the gates at the top of the park are closing at sunset, there can be gates at the bridge which also lock down at the same time. And it sounds like a discussion is needed about improved fencing. It seems like there's a lot of security issues that are already not related to the bridge, that hopefully the PPCC can be pushing forward on getting answers and getting funding for. This is very important to the community. But I'm also so excited to have the bridge that's going to allow people in the Palisades to easily get to the beach for exercise, surfing, relaxation, and also, if need be, escaping from wildfires, as David was discussing. The bridge was a high priority to help with safety related to people who will inevitably try to cross PCH without walking all the way down to the crosswalk at Temescal. As we know, the Coastal Commission requires maximum coastal access from this park, whether it's a trail or a bridge, and the lateral trail is required. I know there are concerns about, I think, we should note that the lateral trail is taking them to Temescal, and Lou brought up the Temescal fatalities. They're going to be taking more people to that same intersection where all the fatalities are coming instead of the bridge. So a bridge might be a better solution. I know there are concerns about the unhoused possibly coming up from the beach. I know that in my youth, there were unhoused people already living in Potrero Canyon, as well as a lot of youth up to shenanigans, a lot of pot smoking going on in the canyon. So this is not a new issue, even though it feels like it's more visible now because we all have social media and we see it all posted all over the place. In addition, part of the required coastal access is going to enable the park to be eligible to be a regional park, which comes with many perks for the community, including, my understanding is it includes an on-site ranger, which provides additional staff having eyeballs on the park.
Well, we wish it would, but it doesn't. But that will be something we'll press for, unfortunately.
Okay.
But that is something we're going to press for. Yeah.
Okay.
And it ties into what you were talking about, that there are security concerns already, and that we have to be really, really, diligent about pushing on those. I'm glad to hear you say it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad. I think I encourage the community to really come together on that. I can assure you that the unhoused can get in just as easily through the lateral trail as they could with a bridge, and it's a pretty long walk and climb, and they will be fairly visible if they're coming off of a bridge. And I think it will be helpful if you can get some more security and staffing in the area. The bridge was set as a priority for the community through a 3-year public process led by my father and others who are on this call. His work listening to the community is part of why the park was named after him. There's funding set aside and a process set in place to have a beautiful bridge designed that enhances the community. I'm familiar with Ariano, who is the team that would be on Jacob's team leading the public outreach process. They're an excellent firm, and I think they'll do a great job for the community. George would want you to use this process to get your concerns addressed through the design and the plans that would come through this contract. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya. All right, we're off to non-board members. John Ale.
Hi, I'm John Alley. My
John
family
Alley.
and I own and live. Hi, my family and I own and live in residential properties throughout the Palisades. I'm almost a lifelong resident. I grew up in Potrero. I speak to many neighbors, friends, and tenants on a regular basis about how fortunate we are to live with so many parks at hand. I also served on the Park Advisory Committee 15 years ago. The ideas and concepts back then, even 3 or 5 years ago, sounded great back then, but are not practical or safe today. Many of the park advisory members back then aren't even alive today. I believe things have changed. We see that now a drug and crime epidemic 2.5 miles away in Santa Monica. Look at even world events. I feel PPCC must hold an open community meeting to assess the current community sense about a contemplated bridge to connect Potrero to the county beach restrooms and parking. We currently have, remember this, 2 access points less than a 1/3 mile away on Chautauqua and north on Temescal. Excuse me. The buses from Santa Monica stop right at the proposed bridge site. I served on the Palisades Homeless Outreach Group and encountered many addicts and others incapable of caring for themselves in those restrooms and in Temescal Canyon Park on a regular basis. And not a week goes by when I do not see others at dawn and dusk carrying sleeping bags and backpacks in Potrero. We know they're staying there overnight. We know teens are setting off fireworks and smoking in Potrero now. It wasn't like that when I was growing up there. It wasn't. Our police are stretched thin. There aren't enough and they can't react fast enough. Potrero Park is a fire hazard risk now. We all know how hard it is to keep insurance policies in high-risk areas. Emphasis should be placed, I believe, on finishing the lateral walkway from Potrero to the signalized intersection of Temescal. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're saying
Okay.
priority should be given to the lateral trail to Temescal.
It's only 1.6 miles away. The cost of the bridge, I believe, would be more equitably spent in underserved areas of LA. The bridge is not a necessity, but rather an unneeded extravagance, in my opinion. The canyon is only a mile long, but 46 miles of pretty much flat topography. That's a danger. Thanks. Appreciate being able to talk.
Thank you, John. Okay, we've got an Andrew without a last name and Richard McCann. So Joe, you're gonna be our big finale. So Andrew and then Richard.
I'm assuming it's me because I had my
Yes.
hand up earlier and you tried to limit me. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I'm not a board member. I've never been a board member. Just a community member. So I did hear about it. I've lived in the Palisades for 12 years now. And I knew about the Potrero Canyon development, the auctioning of the properties near it, and the potential bridge when we moved here 12 years ago. So we've known about it. I have not been active on PPC or anything like that, but I've heard about it through Circling the News or Palisades Post or anything like that, or just local talk. I wanted to say that I support the project. One of our area reps shared some of the documents that came that have been developed in the past. Before I moved to the Palisades, I was a real estate developer for 20 years. So I'm familiar with working with cities and doing these kinds of projects. Just because maybe some of us and myself or anyone else wasn't necessarily involved with the project doesn't mean that there wasn't outreach and efforts. And the bridge design that I see in the engineering plans is actually a really beautiful bridge. I've never seen something that kind of nice developed at this early of a stage. And I think our community and our kids in particular deserve a safe, car-free, car-buffered approach to get to the beach. I agree with the sentiments that the most people are going to use this bridge are going to be people that live in the Palisades. The Temescal is already open. There's plenty of homeless people that can come up that way. There's already crime and other issues in the Palisades that have existed before we do, but I don't think the fear of crime and risks is a reason not to invest in public infrastructure. I think those are other issues that should be addressed by the police or social outreach or things like that. But I don't think any of us would say, oh, don't build the rec center. You know what? Don't build Palisades High School. Don't build Temescal Canyon because we're worried about crime or other risks. The community would not be the same without those. So we need to address those security issues as a tangent to, not as imposed to doing this. There seems like they're going to do things. And personally, in my experience with doing development, I know there's been a lot of input about getting more public comment and more public input. In my experience, a lot of public input doesn't necessarily lead to a better result. So my point to reach out to tonight is to say, my biggest concern is what was, I think you mentioned earlier in the evening, saying what is the risk if this does get delayed or if there's a pullback and we have to go through more community. This seems like a lot of funding to do a really nice project that I think a lot of communities would be really thankful to have a safe crossing over the PCH to the beach. What's the risk of not approving it tonight? So thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to use that. Richard McCann, I see you, but Andrew gives us a great segue, and I'm going to use that to go over to Brian. Let me see if he's still on the call. Brian Espin. And Jake, and let's see if there's anyone from the city still on the call. Michael. So a lot of people on this call seem to express a sentiment of support for the bridge, while at the same time imparting concerns that have to do with public safety. I want to point out to everyone on the call, and especially to our agencies, to our city and state agencies, that we've had Potrero Canyon Park open since December 10th, and there have been issues, small and large, that have had to do with security that have been addressed sometimes quickly and sometimes ridiculously slowly. And that's just a small park, and as of yet, it's really pretty much only being used by Palisadians. I would like to get your feedback. Brian, I'll start with you because you kind of see the state of coming and going and sort of low level crime or whatever we want to call it in and out of the park, not necessarily Potrero Canyon Park, but the Palisades Rec Center. And then Jake, I want to hear from you how much of an assurance you can give to the community that you'll put some pressure on Jacob and the contractor to take us seriously. But there have been issues with the gate that have yet to be solved. Potrero Canyon Park is a sunrise to sunset park. We're told even though sunset hours move, the gate's lock isn't going to move. There just isn't enough staff to change it, and it's not a remote operated lock. It's something that somebody has to come to the community and jigger with their hand. Some of this stuff, there's a bathroom that hasn't worked in 3 months. Some of this stuff seems rudimentary, and if we can't address it now here with this small park with very limited usage, what kind of assurance do we have that some of our public safety concerns are going to be addressed in a meaningful way, on a bigger project like the bridge? So Brian, I'm going to start with you. Just tell me what you think crime looks like, and is increased use going to be increased crime, or will we get more resources? And then Jake, I do want you to tell us what kind of assurance you can give us about outreach.
So with the park, obviously I've mentioned this many times. The main issue that we have is obviously the kids hanging out in the park. The youth activities over the hours, they jump the fence, they hang out there. As of right now, there has not been any homeless in the park. I know I have checked it several times in the evening. The beach unit, when they're out late or early morning, have not seen any homeless people camping out in that park. The only issue that I've been made aware of are the kids hanging out in the afternoons or the evenings. And I just kind of found out talking with the fire station, the some of the fireworks, I guess they have used fireworks in the past. Obviously, we've seen that, but I guess a lot of the fireworks or what they believe to be fireworks, the Fire Station 69, what they were telling me, a lot of the kids, they're like kind of like how we used to use hairspray and a lighter and make little torches. They're using Axe body sprays now, like little aerosol cans, and they're just messing around back there, kind of being little pyromaniacs, I guess. And then they'll light them and then just let them burn and they'll pop. So they are using fireworks, but now it's the new thing is using these little aerosol cans, and then they're lighting them in trash cans, I believe, or the old fire pit down in the pit area of the park. In general, when you do increase foot traffic, you do see an increase in criminal activity. That is a given. Whether it will happen at this park, who knows? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a gamble, but it's all an unknown. Mm-hmm. That park is wide open, so it is very difficult for people to kind of camp out and get encampments in there, because all that brush has been cleared out and the trails are wide open. There are a few areas where people can kind of hide in behind bushes, but they're on steep hillsides. They're not on flat areas. So it's, in my opinion, now this is just an opinion, in my opinion, it's unlikely that we're going to see encampments or a lot of homeless people in there because of the bridge. If they wanted to, they could go up there now, because we do occasionally find homeless people behind that retaining wall on PCH. That's because there's a flat area and it's a little bit well hidden. So if they wanted to go up into Potrero Canyon, the unhoused, they could do that right now if they really wanted to, just because it's easy access. But as crime, I mean, it's it's unknown, honestly. And if we do put in that, if a bridge is installed, I would like to see more increased security from either rangers or even LAPD if we have that ability, if we have the resources at that time when the bridge is complete. But that's all I can say. It's a lot of it's just in the unknown.
Okay. There were a couple of other bridges in the Palisades that cross PCH from the beach to Palisadian neighborhoods. Are you ever called to those locations because people cross or things happen or, crime takes place? I mean, I can think of one down in Area 1, right? There's a tiny little bridge that that goes from the sand into Castellamar.
Yeah, so we have seen people kind of migrating from the beach up into the neighborhood, but I can't say for sure it's attributed to the crime in the area. Okay. Most of the crime that we'll see up there are usually the package thefts and occasional home break-in, but okay. I can't say for certain it's people using that bridge or that access.
So they haven't called. Okay. Cindy, forgive me for not remembering, but did you tell me that the community has funded a camera on that bridge? Cindy Young? I don't know, maybe Murray knows.
No,
I'm sorry. I think Cindy.
Actually, yeah, I'm here.
Sorry.
Oh, you're here? Okay.
Actually, the community started a nonprofit, Castellamar Security Committee. Well, it's my nonprofit. So
thanks to you.
What we did is we took in donations for cameras for all of the entrances to Castellamar. We have them at Porta Marina, we have them on the pedestrian bridge, and we have them on Tremonto Drive.
Cool. And how often?
Very helpful.
They're very helpful. Okay. Okay, great. So Jake, I'm going to send it over to you. I think you get a flavor of what some of the concerns are. I mean, I want to say that, thanks, Jessica. I'm seeing your chat. I want to say that the community is really going to look to you for some help and assurances that if a camera has to be put up there, that we really get some help with installing cameras. I mean, we've been talking about putting pull top cameras throughout our open spaces for such a long time. Universally, everybody seems to think it's a great idea, from the city council member to the assembly member to the city attorney to everybody on this board, yet we can't get them. So this is a little bit more of a big deal. And I sort of just want from you something of an assurance that you hear the common thread here, opposed or, in love with the idea. The common thread is we're going to have some safety measures in place. And as a community, we can advocate. You probably already know this, PPCC can be pretty convincing and very tenacious. but we really don't have our hands on the levers. So we're going to need some help from you guys and from the city council office to put some of these safety measures in place.
Yeah, I'm happy to start responding to a lot of the comments that we've gotten here. I just was wondering, there's a few other hands up. If you want to get to those hands first? Or...
Definitely. So I still want to give Joe Halper the last word. So we're going to do Richard McCann and then Gil Dembo. There's a Marco and a Reza. Reza, you're on the board. I'm dying to know what you want to say, and I don't want to take up too much time. So let's go with Richard McCann, and then we'll go from there.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk. I am George Wolfberg's son-in-law, and I've got to know George quite well. One of the things that I will say is that George proved that the PPCC can be very effective because he got the park built, basically using that pathway to doing that. So you do have a strong lever with your organization, and you should use it. And having this contract will actually be one of your best opportunities to put input into this project and into the design of the project. That's where your opportunity is. This is your chance to speak about this project and to get it designed in the way that you want it to be designed. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things. There was somebody had asserted that there was a threat of a lawsuit if the bridge wasn't built, if the contract was awarded. And I was assuming that might have related to Jacobs. Jacobs will not be the construction manager for this project in all likelihood. I think that they probably will be conflicted out. They're also a $15 billion company with 60,000 employees. They do not want to do anything to get crossways with the city of LA for future contracting. They are not going to file a lawsuit over a project of this size. If the project was, for some reason, they did the design and they discovered that the bridge was infeasible, which is a possibility that there is some geological problem with the footing of the bridges, for example, then they wouldn't build the bridge. And that would be the recommendation in that project. So that is always a possibility. Yeah. I will also say that this bridge is a necessity for extending the LA bike network. And as we are faced with climate change, that we need to get more bike ridership in order to reduce our emissions. This is part of the LA Climate Action Plan, and this is an important element of that community network. And as others have said, this is going to benefit locals much more than it is people from the outside. You can hardly tell that the park is there when you are below and looking up there. It's that people aren't going to just wander up there. So finally, I think that George was prominent and visible in this community and really had a lot of outreach to people in the community. I think that he really had a lot of input, and I think that it's that you should be looking at your opportunity for being able to influence how this bridge is built by asking for those kinds of outreach standards in the contract.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. So first, I want to say that I think in the immediate term, both Potrero and the bridge are going to be used probably very much by Palisadians, but in the long term, and this is a bridge for generations, in the long term, it is a gateway into the Palisades. So the fact that we're sort of looking ahead and talking about some safety measures, I think is very wise. Most of us on this council, of course, realize that we, can get things done. Most of us have gotten things done, but I, for one, am looking, and I know some of you are too, I'm looking at the current community plan update process that the city is undertaking, and they have an outreach process. I chair the land use committee of the West Side Regional Alliance of Councils, and I hear over and over again from neighborhood and community councils that the outreach is done. The feedback is received, but it is not implemented. And that is my great worry. Not that we theoretically don't have a chance to put our input into the bridge, but that we practically will see that input reflected in the final product. And that is really where I see a missing link. And I do want to get assurances from people I can that that link will be closed.
Yeah, I would just say one thing on that. There's a difference in something that's citywide and trying to incorporate everybody's input, and having a project that is that spot in that location very localized and getting community input. So I think that you're going to have a very different experience.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna I don't know who Marco is. Gil, I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say. Reza, what do you want to say? And Joe, I'm dying to hear from you. So Reza.
You don't know who I am? Hi.
Hi. That was not Reza, that was Marco. Are you a resident?
Yeah, yes, I am. My name is Mark. I've been on these meetings before.
Okay, welcome. Go ahead.
How are you? So I live across the street from Potrero Canyon. I'm on Friend Street entrance. So I've been on this meeting before. I've been in the Palisades for 6 years. So not everyone does know about the park. I've heard people talk about the park, so not everyone. So that's false information. But I've heard that from people, but not everybody has information. I'm going to make this quick because it's been a really long day for you guys and night. You guys, this is just something really minor. It's taken 2 years to fix a gate on Frank Street. 2 years to fix a gate. And you guys are talking about building a bridge. You can't even fix a gate. So let me just say this. You got safety issues too. You have a path. A lot of you people might not even really, you must know the park, but you're not walking in park. I walk in a park. So you have a path and you have about 150 signs that say no dogs without leashes, and everyone has their dogs with leashes. So that's, no one listens to signs. So you have dogs running around the place, and now you want to have a bike path and you want to have a bridge to, you've got way too many people in a short amount of space. So if you're worried about safety, you're going to have a mess. And don't get me wrong. I would love to get a walk to the ocean. I get it all. But I just think that you guys really are not thinking about it. And you need to think about the safety. Those paths are way too small to have dogs running around, bikes running around, and now thousands of other people coming back and forth. So just do your homework, figure it out, but listen to the people that are walking in the park and people that live there. And fix the Friend Street gate first before you build a bridge.
Okay, thank you. And yes, the gates we're constantly harping on trying to fix, and yes, it is slow going. And that was one of the things that I mentioned is, you know, assurances that the city's going to be a little bit quicker about issues that arise. Gil, Joe, and then Jake.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted a couple of things. This project has been going on for 40 years. And if people haven't heard about it, and they haven't been living in the Palisades. And the main thing is that I want to say that we are very fortunate that our Ben Allen and Richard Bloom were able to support this project because the community wanted it. And that's why we have $10 million to
Gil,
finish
part of the
this.
problem and part of the reason we're having this call is that the senator's office has heard from some people over and over again, but they don't have the expression of community-wide support.
Okay.
What we're trying to
just
bring together for them.
Okay. And this will be, it's more than a Palisades project, it's a community project. Yeah. I have a summary of the contract between Jacobs and the Bureau of Engineering. And they are committed to the stakeholders, who are the residents of the Palisades, to have public outreach meetings. So they will accept and take the advice of the residents of the Palisades. Also, part of their contract is to do a complete environmental quality investigation to make sure that the bridge meets all the requirements of the state quality control. And we're very fortunate to have somebody like Jacobs Engineering handle this project, because it'll become a tremendous asset to the Palisades. And I think you should go ahead with the contract tomorrow. Thank you. One more thing, I think the council should get more people to get involved in the community. The community runs better when people are involved.
We totally agree with you, Gil. In fact, something David Card said early was that this bridge project has been on the table for 20, 25 years, and people have had a chance to opine about it. And I agree, it's been on the table for 20 or 25 years. I just don't know if people have known when and where to opine about it. And I wish they had, because then we wouldn't be here at 9:30, trying to get people.
Well, just the problem is projects like this in the city do not move very fast.
Right.
With permitting and studies and things like that. Try to build a house in the Palisades.
That brings up a great point, Gil, and maybe Jake can answer, and I still see Joe. But this did move pretty quickly in the last year or so, even though the lateral trail project has been on the table for longer and presumably was prioritized. I wouldn't mind understanding why. I mean, why are we now pushing off the lateral trail and doing the bridge? And do we really need both? Maybe that 1.1 million can come over to here, or this money can go over to there. But it is interesting.
Maybe the previous council person didn't keep us posted on what was going on.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, Joe Halper and then Jake. Thank you, Gil.
Unmute myself.
You're not.
Good evening. Thank you.
We can hear you, Joe. You're not.
Opportunity to visit with a lot of good old friends. I don't know if all present would know that I just came off the city's Recreation and Park Board of Commissioners after 5 years serving there. And before that, I did 7 years on West LA planning, looking mostly at the development of Potrero Canyon. So this has become an important part of my psyche. One of the joys I've had here is meeting the Wolfbergs and working with the hundred guys like have worked on this committee and have worked for many years. But I would like to say one simple thing. I believe, and you help me on this, if you would, Miriam. My understanding after all this time is that this is not the end of the road in terms of decision making. You're getting 3 opportunities at least for the community to give their input on this project. And I heard great ideas and some creditable complaints as we met with just tonight. As I understand the process, when the project is designed, it goes back to the Recreation and Parks Board of Commissioners, and they then have the final word in instructing the Bureau of Engineering to go ahead. So I don't think we're at this point of no return. And I think the thoughts that are coming through and the idea that people are now showing interest is important and should be recognized. And there is no reason not to go ahead, because tomorrow we're voting for the Board of Public Works on the project, whether we go ahead or not, and then we're stuck. We're not. You will have an opportunity to go before the Recreation and Parks Board of Commissioners. There are 5 people who have, one of them replacing me this past year. And you'll have an opportunity to state your case and make your recommendations at that point. And I suggest that you pursue that opportunity. Thank you very much, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for making that clear that the point of no return is potentially not tomorrow. Thank you. All right, Jake, I would love for you to give a response to some of the things you've heard. The first two questions were the feasibility study and the EIR. I'd love to, oh, I'm sorry. There's one more hand up. One more hand up. I'm sorry. Reza, did you want to say something?
I just really wanted to, from everything what I've seen and I've heard, I just really want to express that recently I've become a stakeholder also in the Palms neighborhood. And I just really want Palisadians to know, as someone who has lived in the Palisades and been blessed to live in the Palisades the last 30 years, and go to school in the Palisades and come back to live in the Palisades, you guys really don't know how lucky you have it. You really don't. You are so truly blessed to live in such a wonderful community. And this bridge is just going to add value to that. I mean, it's a gateway to the ocean, and I don't want to see it die, but it's great to get input process, but just really stop for a second and think about all the other communities in this big city of ours who don't even have a senior lead officer that shows up to their community meetings like yours does. I've been to other community meetings. They can't even get LAPD to show up. So for 1 second, before you fearmonger or you get scared or you really think about, we're really blessed in our community. We have private security. We have a great fire department. There's a lot to be grateful for. That's all. And with that said, I'm also, Mariam.
Nope. Conversation for another day.
No, I'm going to resign as of November 30th from my seat on the community council.
All right, everyone. So just so you know, that's Reza Akef. He's been on the community council since the beginning of time. He is the Area 8 primary rep. He has been for dozens of years, and he is moving on. So it remains to be seen if I accept your resignation, but thank you, Reza. And I think part of what you said is why we're here at 9:33 at night, is because I think everybody does have a sense that we live in a unique community that's worth our time. And there are a lot of great qualities about the community that we all work hard to preserve. We had that 50th anniversary jubilee where at least 35 organizations showed up, and we got to see just how many organizations have volunteer people who work very hard on different aspects of the Palisades just to keep it great. And as many of you know, I came on this board, I don't know, maybe 2014. I was the education rep. My first friend on the board was George Wolfberg, whose smile and wonderful warm hand was welcoming and wonderful and empowering. And at the time, I happened to be a soccer ref. I was the ref captain, if you can believe it, and he was a ref. And on one rainy afternoon, we were the only two people on the pitch. And I think that was the day he decided he was going to trust me, because I was this tiny little woman who barely knew, what a offsides was. And there I was in the rain. And so George and I became friends. When Chris Spitz's term as president ended, she asked me if I would be chair. I was vice chair before. I had taken over from Andrew Wolfberg, let there be no mistake. So when I accepted to be the chair, I went to George and I said, George, I can't do this without you. And he said, no way, don't even talk to me. And I said, please, please. And literally George was my mentor and my friend and my soulmate for 3 or 4 years. So Reza was on the board at that time. That's how far back we all go. So Reza, I thank you, but I also want to impress upon this board that we're all here because there is something important here to preserve. And maybe the bridge is a great idea, but there are safety concerns that I do think we have to cement. Now, either we go forward with the bridge and we cement those safety concerns through the outreach process that the contractor brings, or we say that the community still has some safety concerns that we need to talk about. Doesn't seem to me that we're going in that direction, but that is going to be the vote I call in about 15 minutes after we hear from Jake. So Jake, you now have the lay of the land. Please go ahead and tell us your thoughts. And also please address the EIR as well as the feasibility study.
Yeah. Thank you, Mariam. And I think Gabby is also on this call, maybe on the iPhone there, and Michael, and wanted to chat after me if they could speak as well. First of all, thank you everyone so much for joining this meeting. I know Mariam had to call this very last minute, but for all the reasons she laid out, wanted to make sure that everyone in the community was having an opportunity to provide their input. And I'm gonna try to address people's concerns, answer some points that have been raised. I'm gonna start with a little bit of a timeline. So yeah, back in 2004, this body, the PPCC, unanimously supported support for a bridge project when the idea was to create the Potrero Canyon Park, the George Wolfberg Park, and create a bridge as part of that park to get access to the ocean. As the process went along, there wasn't funding secured, but the city was taking this seriously. In 2016, the city of Los Angeles has a Mars report, which I can put in the chat if people are interested, or Mariam can share afterwards, which is a pretty comprehensive report laying out different aspects of the park as well as the coastal access option. There are different coastal access options. There's a lateral trail, there's an underground crossing, there's an above ground bridge crossing, and then there's also an at-grade crossing. And the report highlights the bridge as the best option as well as the safest option, specifically with regards to safety concerns of people being hit and killed on PCH. In 2021, after several years, I went through a lot of minutes today of PPCC meetings from 2020 and 2021. Lots of questions being asked about what was happening with the bridge, what was the status of the bridge, questions that were being asked at the time to the city council office. There was interest in the bridge, but there wasn't funding for it. In a July, I want to get my dates right, July 8, 2021 meeting by the PPCC, there was a pretty comprehensive update that was provided about the bridge, as well as a very comprehensive timeline that had been put together by the PPCC Executive Committee in April of that year. So I'm going to pop that into the chat. Folks are interested. So that's the timeline that was assembled, and here are the minutes from that meeting. And what was discussed was interest in looking into state and federal funds for that money. Quoting here, the offices of state legislators Ben Al and Richard Bloom are also seeking funding for the bridge, and they are considering coordinating with RAP in the federal application for funding, or finding other funding from the state. So that happened. And then a few months later, the state had a surplus of money. The state historically hasn't had surpluses that we've been able to give out in earmarked projects. That's something the federal government has done for quite a bit of time with pork projects. But at the state, that's not normally a position that we've been in. But we had a surplus, and we had an opportunity of extra funds. And I was not there in the office at the time, but I've done my diligence to try to understand what took place. And folks from the community came to us and said, look, the PPCC supported this project unanimously as a board, understandably back in 2004, but has been talking about this project for years and years. The city wants to do this project, but we don't have funding. We have this great opportunity for a state surplus. And the senator who loves our mountains and hiking and our beaches and the beauty of the Pacific Palisades, wanted to put in a request. So together with Assemblymember Richard Bloom, put in a request and was successful in securing $11 million, which was the estimated cost for the bridge. In June of 2021, sorry, let me make sure it was June or July, let me get the dates right. In July 8th, 2021 meeting, Senator Allen was present on that virtual call back in our pandemic times and gave an announcement about the project, the funding that he had secured, and the bridge. reading from the very detailed minutes. Thank you, PPCC, for keeping the detailed minutes. He spoke about, he worked closely, he talked about securing victories for the Palisades and coastal communities, who worked closely with PPCC Chair and Joe Halpert, thank you, on the Potrero Canyon Park, specifically on the missing link, getting safely from the park to the beach. There's $11 million in the budget and funding for building the bridge. The center thanks PPCC for its years of support for this project. Construction will commence in the months ahead. So then there's some questions about how does the funding get allocated, but not any serious concerns about pushback, and you can look through those minutes there. And I joined this office about a year ago, and one of the first meetings I had was Mariam reaching out and saying, what is happening with this bridge and this lateral trail? What's going on with these projects? We have this beautiful new park. Where's our coastal access? And so we got the ball rolling on these projects. In the past year now, we've been meeting regularly with Mariam, trying to give updates to Mariam and the other stakeholders. Throughout this process, we've worked closely with Councilmember Park's office, who I want to thank, who's been an ally in this process and getting the state funds to the city hands. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bureaucracy and it's a slow process, but the project has been moving forward.
So Jake, can I interject just quickly to clarify? Meeting with Mariam is meeting with the Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee, which is a 10-member committee. I'm an ex officio member, and yes, we have been meeting, but it's a 10-member committee, and we've been posting updates on the website on a little tab that says Potrero Canyon.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Just want to make sure everybody doesn't think you and I have been chatting monthly for a year.
Correct. But I think fair to say that we've been in close conversation and collaboration on this project and trying to provide as much update and information, so things were moving along and not stuck. Back in May, there were a number of community members in April and May that had raised concerns about the project. And I spoke at a PPCC meeting. There was an agenda item, and we spoke a bit in detail. And I made clear, both an email to Mariam at the time, that we were still under the assumption that the community broadly, not every single person, and that there was still concern, but broadly was still supportive of this project, unless we were told that there was an official position taken by the PPCC that they don't support the project, that they oppose the project.
Okay,
and
so
now we're
one little stop. So everyone, that was the May meeting. Most people on this call were also on that call. It was May of 2023.
Yeah, it was May of this year. I believe it was May 8th, but I can double check.
Yes, it was. It was May of 2023. It was not an agenda item. It was an update item. And the reason it wasn't an agenda item is, well, largely because of what we've been talking about today, that there was an outreach process that we all expected to unfold from the contractor, which still is expected to unfold. The only difference is that outreach process is really only going towards the design of the bridge. So it was important to have you and everyone else hear from the community about the actual bridge versus the design. But yes, so there was that May 8th meeting. Most people were here. You heard everybody talk. There was some dissent, but for the most part, you thought you heard continued support.
Yeah, I certainly heard people raise concerns, I think similar to the concerns that we've heard here this evening. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of that background. I understand there's folks who may have not heard about this project before. I'm sure there's government projects that are taking place that they haven't heard about. We did our best when the senator was in the Palisades. He was really excited about this project. He's always seen this as a victory of state money that he's bringing back to the Palisades for a project that the community wanted. And I think we've heard here a lot of people have been working on and very supportive of for a long time. That being said, people raise a number of concerns, and I want to do my best to address them. The first concern that I'm hearing is related to public safety, crime, and I think I would say related to that is homelessness. The senator, of course, takes these issues incredibly seriously. We've seen a huge increase in homelessness across our district, across our region. The Palisades, has not, has gotten its fair share of that issue as well. And with regards to crime and public safety, once again, we take that super seriously, and by no means would we want to be creating a project that's going to lead to a huge spike in crime. I want to be clear, the currently existing George Wolfberg Potrero Canyon Park is not a state-owned park. So I work for State Center Ben Allen. That is a city-owned property. It is a city-owned park. So I know people raise a number of different concerns about lighting and cameras and gates, and I will let Councilmember Parks, very well qualified team, respond to those concerns. But I have nothing to speak about that project because it's not a state property. With regards to this project, the next step in this process is a 2-year, we're calling it a feasibility study. It's really a project initiation document, is the technical term. And what that involves is, yes, a better kind of design and understanding of what the bridge is going to look like, the specifics of where it's going to land, but also very importantly, comprehensive community engagement, so that all of the folks here who are so invested in their community and care about their community and want to keep it the incredible place that it is and safe, and the rest of the community who maybe doesn't know about it, can learn about this project, better understand proposals for what it's going to look like, and hopefully make sure that all those concerns are raised throughout that professional community engagement process, that we're definitely going to, help out with and keep an eye on, but not lead, because I'm not a professional in community engagement, to make sure that the concerns of, is there a gate? When does it close? Does the gate work? Is there lighting? All of those addressed can be, I think a lot of those concerns can be addressed in the design of the bridge. And that's why I encourage everyone who's here and to get your friends and families and neighbor, whether you are fully supportive or hate this project or somewhere in between, which is probably most people on this issue and every issue, to join those conversations and make sure that we build the best possible bridge that's going to mitigate those very legitimate concerns. The next comment was there were comments about the Coastal Commission approval. So yes, there's a lateral trail proposal and there's this bridge proposal. The Coastal Commission, yes, has said that as part of the requirement for this park, there has to be coastal access. So for folks concerned about homeless people being able to access the park, not via, I guess, the roads that currently exist, because they could also access it via those roads, but via this lateral trail or the bridge, at least one of those has to be built per what the state mandated, the Coastal Commission mandated for the approval of the park. The Coastal Commission I spoke with today, they unfortunately are in committee meeting right now and couldn't give me a written statement in time, but reiterated that while they haven't seen the specific design proposal for the bridge, because we don't have that yet and we'll have that these next few years, they are very supportive in concept to the project, and they see it as something that could potentially be even better for coastal access than the lateral trail because of the ease of use of just crossing over a bridge rather than having to walk 0.6 miles, so over a mile round trip along the lateral trail, and are very concerned about matters of safety and people safely accessing our public spaces and our beaches. And they see this, per the city report and everything else, a bridge as being the safest way to cross what is otherwise a really unsafe corridor. People have said there's not been enough community outreach. Correct. The next stage of this process is going to have really comprehensive community engagement and community outreach, so that everyone in the community, ideally everyone in the community, knows about this project and can share their concerns, and we can respond to those concerns in what we build. Okay, and then lastly, I'll just say, just run through what are the benefits of the bridge and why are we supportive of this bridge? From what we've heard from the community, so we talked about the public safety issues at the park, which I appreciate our LAPD officer who's here and shared that according to him, he's not seeing a huge homelessness problem in the park. I know other people in the chat, I was trying to keep tabs of that, do see some homeless individuals in the park. But he doesn't see this as something that's going to create a huge boost in, an increase in encampments or public safety concerns. there are public safety benefits, right, of building this bridge, which are folks not dying running across PCH, which a lot of you guys raise that concern with us frequently. And also, I think folks here raised an interesting point about the fire evacuation and the Palisades having another route, which I know is a concern for a lot of individuals in the event of a fire. In terms of coastal access, there's going to be coastal access regardless. This is also, some people mentioned this is a project of regional benefit. Yes, we want to make sure that we're mitigating the concerns of the people who are going to be most impacted, the folks who are right there in the Palisades. But we see this as something that hopefully the entire community is going to be able to access and enjoy. I've been to Potrero multiple times outside of work hours, and it is a lovely park. And I'd love to be able to go from the beach to the park. The parking alleviation concerns, and for Palisades residents to be able to safely, easily, quickly get to the beach. Of course, the senator doesn't want to be forcing a project that the community hates. So we want to make sure that we're hearing back. And I do hear concerns from individuals, but I'm still hearing there's a lot of people who really do support this project. So let me know if I'm missing anything. I'm sorry I spoke in depth, but there were a lot of points raised and I wanted to do my best to respond to them.
Thank you, Jake. I'm going to see if Gabby wants to speak too, but can you answer the EIR question? It was the first one. Barbara asked it. She's off the call, but there was the feasibility study question in the EIR. So feasibility, the way that they envisioned it when the Coastal Commission report came out, is not happening. A different kind of feasibility you're anticipating, and then also the EIR.
Yeah, Gabby might actually be better to answer those specific questions.
Oh, I see her now. Okay, she's here and her hand is up, so I'm happy to give her the floor.
Yeah, about the process, but of course there's going to be environmental review of the process. I think that it goes project initiation document and then it goes to the environmental review, but I'll turn that over to Gabby.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Gabby Medina, District Director to Councilwoman Tracy Park, and I apologize for the background. I'm actually just at an event with the Councilwoman, and I wanted to step away to be present in this meeting as we have been engaging in conversations for quite some time. But I do understand that there are some outstanding questions, some legitimate outstanding concerns. And the Councilwoman was actually listening in for the first portion of it. So she was very happy to see so many people on the call. And I echo Jake's sentiments in terms of we appreciate everyone's feedback. You know, I think that community input is part of everything that we do as an office. Under her administration, Councilwoman Tracy Park wants to make sure that she's not only listening to what her constituents are saying, but that she's acting on it. And that leads me into our comments about the specific project. I don't want to repeat what Jake said because he did an incredible job at memorializing everything that has happened. And we actually have a running document of all of the interaction, as well as all of the public speaking that we've done, community engagement, and all of the city formal documents pertaining to the park, the bridge, and the lateral trail that I would likely share in the chat for all of you to see. But first and foremost, tomorrow's agenda item, it is for the Board of Public Works to authorize to begin the work with Jacobs Engineering. What they'll be doing is the first portion of the bridge project. It's a $2 million contract. And I actually do want to correct myself. I checked in with BOE litigation when I mentioned that it wasn't about finishing the project and not starting, about what would the city be liable if we entered into agreement and then we cut it off. So I mentioned this to our lead engineer on bridges, and he advised his recommendation is that as a city, we continue to move forward with the Board of Public Works approval if we do get approved tomorrow. And then we can actually hold off on the permission to start the work for the contractor until we have another community meeting and actually give people information on what they can expect from the contractor himself. So it's not actually the entire project, it's just a very small portion of it. And that will actually require the contractor to get all of the environmental assessments, all of the coastal commission permits, and any other geotechnical studies that are required to move the project forward. So it's almost like, what do we need in preparation to actually build this bridge out? But very much the project has been funded thanks to the office of Senator Ben Allen, and with a coastal requirement attached to the park, there was a study that was conducted that outlines why the bridge was selected over the 4 possible areas that were studied. And the Mars report, which was conducted in 2016 and has been shared with the Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee and others for quite some time, analyzed 4 aspects of what a coastal access would look like. The first one is to improve the existing trail to Temescal Canyon Road. The second is an at-grade crossing. The third is an underground crossing. And the fourth was a bridge crossing. So the firm that was hired to conduct the study ruled in favor of the bridge. They looked at aesthetics, they looked at safety, they looked at traffic, environmental reports. They looked at everything. And based on their entire report, they did support the idea of improving the existing trail that leads to Temescal Canyon Road. But in their findings, they felt that it would still encourage pedestrians to cross without any mitigated protections along PCH to the beach, and still thus putting them at risk. So they felt that the one project that could meet all of the state's requirements and still be within reason and meet the demands of the community would be the actual bridge. I will add all of this into the comment aspect of this Zoom meeting, and I hope that you all will review it. And I hope that you will also look at the agenda for tomorrow. And I will also attach our document that details all the meetings that we have been having. But please know that we did come into office December 9th. A lot of the work that had been processed about this bridge happened years prior. I think David Card even went back as 2004. And so when we came in, I believe the first email that I got, and I just went through my inbox, was we came in December 12th. The first email was December 16th about wanting to get together to discuss the park, the bridge, and the lateral trail. And ever since then, we have answered every email. We have been at every meeting. And since June, we have been meeting monthly at the request of the Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee to be the liaison between Bureau of Engineering and our community stakeholders. And on behalf of the Councilwoman, we are committed to not just continuing that engagement, but growing that engagement, because the number one thing that I heard on this call is that residents would like possibly a more direct access in understanding the steps that are being taken for the bridge. And so I completely support that. I will speak to our communications director, Jamie Page, to see how best we can do that. Perhaps we can send out a monthly newsletter. We can host a monthly meeting. I just don't want stakeholders to feel, I don't want any of you to feel as if we are not a transparent office, because we pride ourselves in being that and in making sure that if you're not hearing from our departments, that we bring them to the table, or we bring your questions to the table and have answers for you. And so I want to make sure that all of your concerns are addressed when we do begin the community engagement with the contractor. Know that that was the number one concern and priority for our office, was community input. So much that Chris Spitz was able to give me a list of 100 organizations from schools, nonprofits, even small community watch groups. And our intern this summer, who lives in the Palisades, actually contacted each and every organization. And we have a current name and email for all of them. And the first meeting that we do have with the contractor will be about the importance of community engagement. And that has always been at the forefront of our conversations and commitment to this community. And that's not going to go away. So I want to say that a lot has also been learned of certain design aspects and implementation aspects of the park itself that may have been discussed years ago, but were just built out this past year or two. And I want those to definitely be issues that we address, because we have been addressing and we have been responding to it. And just know that we're also learning that the design or the implementation that you see out there was the design that was previously committed. So changing some of the even doors and the locks and some of the issues that we're having with Potrero Park right now, the Canyon Park right now, we can't necessarily make the contractor change it because it wasn't part of the original contractual obligation that we signed on to. But I want those to be learned experiences. For the bridge, we can now understand what types of locks we want, what type of IT, mechanisms we need in place to address your concerns around, the unsheltered problem, around safety, lighting, aesthetics, biking, walking, all of that will be welcome in a very interactive way. And I don't know how much more I can just say that our office is dedicated to just having more open, larger forums for these type of engagement concerning the bridge moving forward, so that we don't face this hurdle in the future. And so I'll put our website in the chat. I'll put the documents in there. I'll put my contact email and Michael's, and we're more than happy to have one-on-one meetings with you if you'd like. After today's meeting, just feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call, and we'll go ahead and schedule those. But thank you for your time and your input, and I look forward to connecting with all of you.
Okay, well, I'm glad we had this meeting and we heard all of that. So with that, we can take a vote. Let's make sure we still have quorum. Area 1, Murray. I see it. Area 2. It would have to be either Bruce. Yep, thank you, Bruce.
Are you going to say what we're voting for?
Yeah, of course. Let me make sure we have quorum and then I'll say what we're voting for. Area 3, we would have to have either Haldis.
Haldis is here.
Oh, great, thank you. So hold on. And the officers, we've got me, we've got Jenny, we've got Sue, we've got Beth, we've got Dave. And we have Jenny. Okay, so that's 4. That's 5, 6, 7, 8. Area 4, Karen. Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Area 5.
Looks like I'm gonna vote right now.
Kimberly. Or we would have to have Betsy. Yes, thank you. 10. Let's see. Area 6, we have
here.
Quentin. I see
Not
you.
here.
Thank you. Yep. It's 11. Area 7, Julie, you're still there. That's 12. Area 8, Reza.
Reza recused himself, so I'll be voting.
Oh, great, Andrew. Okay. Andrew, that's 8. At large, we've got Alan. That's 14. Padden, John.
I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So we have quorum. Hang on one second.
A point of order, Miriam.
Yes.
This is not in compliance with the Brown Act, and I know we're not required to, but I think that's a major issue that needs to be discussed, and maybe, the vote should be reconsidered.
What's the non-compliance?
Was the notice given on Monday? I don't think I saw that.
No, this was a special meeting. Notice was given 24 hours.
So that's compliance with the Brown Act?
It's compliance with our bylaws. We can call special meetings within 24 hours.
So we're not complying with the Brown Act? Is that, not that we're
Not
obligated
Brown
to, but
Acted.
I know we're
Not Brown
specifically, we typically talk about with pride that we comply with the Brown Act. We're not going to do it in this case?
Well, no, we comply with our bylaws, and when our bylaws are silent, we look to the Robert's Rules of Order. That's all that we've done.
So we're not complying with the Brown Act, though, specifically
Yes,
in this case.
Yes, Genevieve, you're here. That's 15, 16. Janet doesn't need to be here. Ryan Craig? Ryan, is that Ryan Craig? Well, Alex is here. So Alex, I'm going to say you're the voting member. And Hagop is still here. Yes. Okay, well, we very much have quorum, but just to be sure. And Courtney? Yes. Okay, we have 19 members here. All right, so the motion that we're voting on is whether or not we go ahead and send this tomorrow to the Board of Public Works. We allow this contract to go ahead and be approved, and we rely on the very robust outreach process that's been laid out to reach into the community, as Gabby says, into all of those organizations that we've introduced to CD11, and we trust that they will take our input into account, having heard us talk about much of it today. So that is the question. All in favor of going forward with this and letting it go through to the Board of Public Works tomorrow as an agenda item that will be voted on and presumably approved. All in favor, please raise your hands. I know who the voting members are, so I will count. Keep your hands up, please. Thank you. So hang on. 1, Julie, 2, 3. Alan, I don't see your hand, but I think that is purposeful. Andrew, 4. John, 5. Don't know what I used. We need 10 for this to pass. Padden, Marie, no vote, right? Quentin, 6. Beth, 7. Sue, 8. Dave Card, 9. Holdus Topple, 10. This passes. I can continue to count, but this passes. Hang on. I've got to switch screens. Wait. Genevieve, that's 11. Alex, I got Andrew. Bruce, that's 12. Jenny, that's 13. Betsy, hand or no hand? No. Okay. This motion passes, folks, with at least 13 members in favor. All opposed, please raise your hand, and I will also call for abstentions. So opposed, I have 1. Opposed. No. Switching screens. Okay, and any abstentions? Thank you, Courtney. Betsy, how did you vote? Did you in favor, abstention, or opposed? Opposed. Got it. All right, folks. So this motion passed with 3 opposed, 1 abstention, and 13 in favor. All right, congratulations, the motion passes, and we are on our way. So our city and our state friends, if you're still on the call, please do make sure that that outreach is meaningful, as I've said in multiple emails, substantive, and that our input is actually reflected in the final product. David Card, I assume you'll be on top of that. Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee, you will continue to be on top of that. And I thank you all for staying on this call until 10:10. That's a 2-hour special meeting, and I appreciate it. Thank you all.
So impressive. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
And for Dave for getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
Insane to be here. Thank you. So it looks like Karen Ridgely wants to say something. So before we adjourn, let's hear her and then we'll adjourn. Karen.
I wanted to know whether there is any requirement or guarantee that those enforcement groups that have to make sure the security exists, like the Rangers or the PD, are required to do so if we build this bridge. In other words, we've had significant concerns about security. And I haven't heard that it's based upon the collaboration of the enforcement agencies. There are 27 rangers for 350 parks. We don't have one. We haven't been told we will get one for sure. Police have told us there are 100 people down, and we are having a hard time getting compliance of an agent in our town regularly, much less the park regularly, although I know the captain did have a force in the Palisades this past weekend in response to our demands. So my question is, in terms of going ahead with this project, what guarantees that the agencies that we rely upon for the security are going to be complementary to the design factors? You can build a gate, but you can't prevent people from climbing over it or jumping, from a bridge or whatever the issues are. So my concern is mainly, what's the enforcement component that's required when we go ahead and give the okay for the bridge to be built? That's it.
Well, I don't know that anybody has an answer for you, but it does look like this is going to be at least a 2-year project, at least 2 years of outreach, far longer to build. And during that time, this organization and every other organization in the Palisades is going to be advocating for greater enforcement resources. I think we're going to be doing that anyway. And now we have a new focal point, and that'll be the bridge. And I think that's what Brian said. He said, if the bridge opens or when the bridge opens, he's going to want to see more LAPD resources. Of course, I seriously doubt that Brian Espin is going to be our SLO at that point, or even that Captain Gabaldon is going to be our captain. But that will be something that this community council is going to be tasked with, is to continue to advocate for more resources. We've done it before. We've been successful at doing it before, a couple of times, even on my watch, probably more on others. But yes, that will be another arm of our advocacy. And maybe Joe Halper can tell us, maybe by then, the Rangers will be better funded and we'll be able to get Ranger support. We've got a long way to go, but yes, public safety will be a major element. And it sounds to me like everyone on this call, and probably everyone for generations to come, is going to be paying close attention to it. And the best I could do, honestly, tonight was to bring the city and the state into a call where they could at least hear people talk about it, and they could know unequivocally that this is a concern that we're going to want them to grapple with. Hopefully we accomplish that. I do see that Gabby has her hand up, so I will give her the last word and then we will adjourn.
Thank you, Miriam. And I also I'm driving, so I apologize for the background noise. I also wanted to note that Councilwoman Park was very supportive in advocating and voting in favor of the new police budget that allows us to really ramp up the hiring of additional officers. And we did so by creating higher incentives, paying officers more for the work that they're doing in terms of protecting our communities and doing a lot of preventative work. And for the first time in a really long time, especially since July of 2020, we saw over 1,000 applicants in August come through for the police department. So we can definitely expect to do more work on behalf of the councilwoman to advocate for more rangers, because our green spaces, our parks, our open spaces are very valuable, and she's definitely committed to preserving them and expanding them. So thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for remaining on this call till 10:15. We have passed a motion. I will put that onto formal letterhead and I will send it to the city and state so that they know the extent to which they have PPCC support. Long overdue, but thank you all for enduring. Have a good night. We are adjourned at 10:15.
Thank you, Miriam, so much.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Nice job.
Thank you. Bye.
Good job.
Good night. Good night, David Card. Good morning, David Card.
I think I'm gonna go back to bed.
You'll miss a day in Spain. So sorry. Bye.